Hello, welcome to All For United WFC. Hello and welcome to All For United with me, John Foster, MUFC. Slightly different show tonight. Natalie's away. I think she's in America. She's somewhere on holiday enjoying herself. Don't blame her. Getting ready for her birthday on New Year's Day. Only Natalie would have a birthday on New Year's Day. But yeah, we've got Conner joining me for an important reason, to be honest. First of all, Conner, how are you doing? You okay?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this show, but I'm also stressing out because the men play in about an hour, and I'm not looking forward to that. So,
yeah. Well, we can touch on that as well shortly. But Conner, you're on for a good reason. We've got Andy and Mike with us today from Stourbridge. How are you guys doing?
All good.
Very well, good, thank you.
Andy is the manager of Stourbridge Ladies women's football team. Mike, head coach. I think I've got your terminology correct there. I'm not too sure what the main differences are between manager, head coach, but great to have you both on. I know, Andy, you've been on before. The show went down really well, and your season's going really well as well. So we'll talk about this. We'll talk about your history-making season, the potential of back-to-back promotions. We'll talk about all this kind of stuff. But first, we can't start the show without talking about Man United's breaking news. We'll go into more detail on this on Monday's show. But Emma Sanders, a journalist for the BBC, has come out today and with a fantastic article on all the potential transfers going into the WSL transfer window. Conner, heading the actual article, Stina Blackstenius it's actually possible that it could actually happen. Just talk to us a little bit about this, because I know that Man United fans have been talking about this for quite a while.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to look bit silly if it doesn't go through now, isn't it? Because we've all been celebrating all day on Twitter, so we can look a bit ridiculous. No, I mean the hype train's been on for a few months, and rightly so. You know, we spoke to Phil, very good Scandinavian journalist the other day. You know, very highly rated. You know, I think she came 10th in the Ballon d'Or list as well. So, you know, she's a very highly, and we don't have a striker really. You know, I've said on numerous shows that Martha Thomas is injured too much. Russo is not a striker, so it's good to have someone potentially. I have to keep saying that because it does feel like we've actually signed her after what I've seen today. That's good in front of goal, and you know that we talk about all the time, don't we? That kind of gap between the 18-yard box and the goal line. We don't have a predatory striker at the moment. We've got very good players who can run at players. We need someone who's just, like a Van Nistelrooy used to do. Doesn't move all too much, and Cavani, you know, in the men's tonight, you know, just predatory in front of goal. That's what we want. So. It will be a brilliant sign, and it's also, more than anything, it's a step in the right direction from the board, showing a bit of ambition. Because I think if we're not going to sign these kind of players, then we're not going to move into that top three consistently. So it's a good step from them, really, that showing that a bit more ambition, you know, and hope it's not the only one. If we can make 2 or 3 in January, then top 3 is a real possibility, and hopefully we push on and get some of the bigger players, because let's not forget we've got a lot of players out of contract as well. I know in that same article, obviously, it talks about Russo, you know, cases obviously after her. So that's going to be the main thing. You can't improve a squad if you're just selling good players and replacing them with good. You need to try and keep hold of your good players and add to that as well. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and definitely looking forward to getting Emma on Monday just to really get into that nitty-gritty, because it's something that we've all been talking about. Mike, just talk to me about the importance of such a quality striker. You know, we've been discussing for a long time on this channel about needing competition for places, and you know, Stina is actually a world-class striker. You know, how important is it to have like more than one quality striker in your team?
Yeah, really important. I'm going to try not to make too many Liverpool comparisons tonight because obviously we're not on that kind of show. But you look at the difference between a Jota, Firmino, and the likes of a Luis Suarez. You're talking about 3 very different forwards, and you know we may never see Suarez in a Liverpool shirt again. But to have both those options in that team is great. From a women's football perspective, Andy and I think we signed about 6 different forwards in the last 6 months. So you know it's so important, and we probably could have been accused in previous years of being a little bit predictable of how we were going to score goals, and we'd like to think now we've got lots of different options, lots of different choices, and you know you can play the best football in the world, but if you can't sit the ball in the back of the net, what are you playing good football for? So, like you say, they don't have to be the player who beats 4 players and does anything they need to do. They can purely and simply be somebody who loves running at the goal, somebody who's a bit selfish, and somebody who likes to score goals. So, really, really important, and no doubts that if the rumours are true, then Man United have been incredibly ambitious, and fingers crossed, we'll reap some benefits for them.
We've heard rumours, and we give rumours, we hear rumours, we repeat rumours all the time. Before Emma Sanders to actually turn around and name this it's quite a big deal. So I think this is why we were getting a bit excited, because we've heard rumours for ages about Blackstenius, and we hear them from less credible people, and it circulates, and this is what happens. But for Emma to come out and say this, it is positive news. Andy, Mike just mentioned a bit about Liverpool there. How do you feel United season, men and women, are going so far, mate?
Well, did we not tell Mike the rules that we couldn't mention Liverpool in this?
We can mention the women's team, I guess.
You know what I mean? Well, even just Liverpool, the word. I mean, well, the men's just a difference in it. I mean, if we touch briefly on the men, it's probably one of the worst performances I've seen in a Man United match for a long time. The other night, Mike was enjoying it immensely in the chat. He'd like to message me, so the difference between the two teams, and a lot of that's down to what Klopp's done over the last few years with Liverpool. Let's not take that away. They've not got a massive amount of depth, in my opinion, Liverpool, compared to probably what United have, but it's the way that they're playing. Mike's touch base on the forward line there, it's just incredible. For me, as a Man United fan, 4-2-2-2, whatever he likes to play, it's just dreadful. It's just not going to work. I just don't see it. But yeah, so a bit of a difference there. And the women's side, it is what it is. I think the ambition that United are showing with that signing potentially is great, and that's what we need to keep doing. We really do. So. It's just slightly different comparisons between the two, isn't it, this season, between the men and the women. Women flying the flag slightly better, I think.
Yeah, it's good. It's good that they got the 3 wins in the last 3 games. That's really helped us go into the new year on a high. It is a Man United show, but we do want to talk about Stourbridge. But Andy, you obviously told me something a few weeks ago that I think we just need to mention on this show regarding a player who used to play for Man United, who you actually taught back in the day. So obviously, I hope you don't mind me saying this, but you are a teacher full time as well. So when you told me this, I was like, what, really? And I really hope that Natalie ends up watching this show, because she's a huge Ebony Salmon fan. Just tell us a little bit about that, Andy, the fact that you used to teach one of the players who we want to come back to the club, let alone who we enjoyed watching a few years ago.
Absolutely. I think just touching on what you just said there, I think letting her go was. I mean, I get it. She was young. She's young, isn't she? So she needed to go off and play first team football week in, week out for Bristol. Was it? She was at. So she's done great. Ebony has. Going off, I think she did the right thing going to do that. But yeah, I knew Ebony. Literally, she was a little year 7 coming in from school into King's Winford School at the time, and she was lovely. She was great, and kind of in her final years at King's Winford Secondary School, saw that drive and that ambition. You just knew what she was about, really. That she was going to go on, and her dad's very football orientated. He's I think in and around non-league, the West Midlands regional levels. So they were very driven about her getting her GCSEs and being very focused and doing well in PE. And obviously she was playing for, I think it was Villa. Was it Villa at the time? She was playing at schoolgirl level, yeah. So she was at Villa, at that time, and she was always, she was an amazingly great footballer, but always very driven to go and do the best. So when I saw her sign for Man United, it was a bit, wow, what, and then, she didn't have the best time there at United, did she? But she was young, as I said. It was obviously United's first season in women's football. So, but then she got the call up for England under 18s, was it?
18s and 19, yeah.
You just knew where she was going to go, and then she signed this, obviously, deal over in America. So proved really. But there was always and I don't know if you know Tammy George down at Wolves. They were in the same year group.
Yeah.
And Tyler Perry. Tyler Perry's youth player. He's in the boys, obviously. He's at Wolves on loan to Cheltenham. So in that year group, there was quite a lot of talent there. But Ebony's definitely at the forefront of that and doing incredibly well. Like so, bit of a claim to fame for me, I suppose, knowing Ebony Salmon.
So literally just down the road, it's like literally the next town along. It's I didn't realise it was so close to my home as well. I could dig even deeper, but we want to talk about Stourbridge. But last thing, Mike obviously links with Birmingham. Our manager Skinner. You obviously, how close were you, or how much did you speak to him? How much do you know of him from previously when he did belong to Birmingham City?
Yeah, well, I'm still there now currently, and have been for a couple of years. Mark's time was done by then, and obviously the club has been through transitions and lots of stuff going on there. I think the ripples of his time is still felt, certainly by the fans who still cite his time at the club and all the good things that happened when he was there. He's also well known. I work at Dudley College as well, and he's well known to a lot of the staff there because he was at Birmingham Met College, while some of the staff who are at Dudley are there. So, a lot of people know him well, speak very highly of him. He got a very tough time, I think, in the media when he came out with that interview, where a lot of people trounced him for some of the terminology he used, etc. But I think regardless of what and how you approach the media, I think the media like winners. I think people like winners. And if you look at the hype around Bielsa when they came up and that wonderful Leeds team who run around lots, now that they're not doing so well, it's not many people who are talking about Bielsa as much anymore. You don't hear people talking about his amazing coaching approach. You hear people talking about how he tells them to run around too much. So it swings and roundabouts. It's hype and it's results and it's all of those things. And without a doubt, you don't win games in the WSL unless you're good at what you do. And the nature of the win against Villa is incredibly impressive. That's a good Villa side, led well. Full credit to Mark for producing the results. And if the ambitions of the club are matching his and the players are on board, the sky's the limit. So exciting. Wish I could have spent a bit of time with him, but there we are.
We'll hopefully you guys will come back on before the end of the season and discuss Stourbridge's full season, and we'll talk a bit more about maybe Skinner and United then. But we do want to get into Stourbridge today. Conor, if I say Stourbridge LFC are history makers, we was there when in the early rounds with Kidderminster Harriers. I think that was the first time that you went to a game at Stourbridge, I think, and a few more came. It kind of started there, didn't it? But let's talk about the cup one. Just your thoughts on that, Conor.
Well, I remember following it on Twitter. The Derby game in particular, I remember following on Twitter because obviously it clashed with the women's game, the Man United women's. So I was keeping an eye on it. I remember, if I remember rightly, Stourbridge went 1-up quite early on. And I remember looking at it, and I think I showed people around me. I was like, okay, they've got a goal, and everyone around me was like, yeah, no, that's good actually. Managed to score against. I know as the game went on, and in the manner, I'm sure you two, we'll talk about it more. But in the manner that you won that game in the 90th minute with the goal that it was, about 35, 40 yards, lobbing the keeper. You cannot get a more beautiful way to win a football game, and in particular a giant killing, I guess if you want to call it that, in the FA Cup. There's no better way to win a game. So, let's say following from that, then you go and beat someone else in a higher tier, and it's like, oh, Christ, it gave me that much confidence. I was going into the Sheffield game, I was telling everyone around me, they could do this. They could go on and beat Sheffield. And everyone was like, come on, that's it. I was like, no, you wait. But even the Sheffield game itself, for me personally, just looking on from what I've seen of it and everything else, still an incredible achievement to get that far. With the tier 5 side, it's just brilliant. So yes, I wish I could have been at some of the games. It's a shame that all of the women's matches seem to be on Sundays, and obviously it clashes with United. But yeah, as soon as I think there is an opening in January, when United play on the Saturday, then yeah, me and John will be straight back down there. But yeah, from what I saw of it and just following it online, all the videos of the celebrations afterwards, and in the street after, I think it was after Derby or Cambridge, I think, can't remember which one it was, but yeah, just brilliant.
Yeah. Shout out to Derby for putting some stuff on YouTube as well, even though they lost. They put some good videos on there. Andy, make a start, then talk us through it. The FA Cup run, it's fantastic. It's the fact that it was on the news.
Derby had no choice. We were harassing them for the footage. The moment after the kick-off. It's going to be, it's going to go with me, right to the end for me as a career thing, and I'm sure it will do with Mike. We're hoping not for it to be the only time we ever do so well in the FA Cup, and I don't think it will be. I've said that to many people, but we've got to live in the moment, and we have done. And it's been, I kind of said before the show, it's been an absolute whirlwind. That Kidderminster game, honestly, it feels years away. Absolutely does, because it's been such a whirlwind, because you win that game and you literally, Monday at 2 o'clock, 1 o'clock, we're waiting for the FA Cup draw, and who's in the next round. And if you two know me and Mike, and I can tell you about Mike, he's literally, we get the draw and we're planning the opposition, we're planning what the tactics, and straight away Mike's got several pieces of footage, whoever we've drawn on that Monday at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. So it's just been a real kind of whirlwind, but an amazing whirlwind. And the players have probably enjoyed it 10 times more than me and Mike have in many ways, because of the being part of it. But yeah, that Derby game, it was tactical genius, if I'm honest. You shouldn't win those games. We shouldn't have won that game without a shadow of a doubt. And the guy in the camera next to me, he's got a lot of credit for that, and he deserves a lot of credit, really, because what we did in the training ground, leading up to that game, if we hadn't done that, you lose that game 3, 4, 5, and so on, because Derby were incredible. They were solid, but the way that we tactically set up won that game without a shadow of a doubt. And the players themselves, they believed in the change rooms. And not forget, we went 1-0 down within a minute. Poor goal it was, but we went 1-0 down, and then not long after, Mill Rogers gets a chance, and me and Mike kind of, we felt exactly what we knew we could. We knew we could get chances. And I think the players just thought, hang on a minute, yes, we're 1-0 down, but there's something in this game, and the rest is history. And it was an incredible day. And the photos, I still look back at those celebrations at the final whistle. I mean, the way we were celebrating every time we scored a goal, or, on the sideline was incredible. But those celebrations at full time, I just dropped to my knees, because we'd just done literally what would be the unthinkable. And it was incredible. So, Great moment that was. The Sheffield United game was one of those. Connor's mentioned, did we believe we could try and get something? I think we had to. We didn't want to make up the numbers. That's not what Stourbridge are about. And I think Sheffield United, incredible team. But even looking back at the footage, Mike will tell you, looking back at the footage, the goals weren't, they weren't, oh my God, they've blown us away. It was actually a lot of nerves from Stourbridge. We went into the game very nervous in the first 45 minutes, really, really nervous, and it cost us a couple of early goals. So we always believed that we could go and maybe cause another upset, and we made it difficult for Sheffield United. But the scoreline itself was incredible. So great memories from me and the team.
Just off the back of that, this is a question for either of you, did you look at the FA Cup any? I don't know, a question I've got for a bit later on is about kind of objectives for the season, those kind of things. But did you view the FA Cup any different after Derby, or do you just kind of look at it as, you just look at that particular game and whoever you drew kind of thing? Or once you beat Derby, do you go, right, okay, actually, we'll put more focus into the FA Cup over the league and these kind of things?
No, I think we did. I think that's a good question, because we probably wanted to get to that point. The first round. If we could have gone second round, yes, because that would have beat last season and made history again, for sure. But once you beat Derby, you then get the Cambridge draw, and we always believed you could beat Cambridge, because you beat Derby, you can beat Cambridge, and we believe we know where we should be in this women's pyramid, so we knew we could do that. And you're thinking then, hang on a minute, you could get a championship side, you could get through to the next round of that, and then you get Man United, Man City. So that was kind of the target then. After the Derby game, the target was actually, can we get to a point where you draw Man United, Man City down to Warmore? Because it generally could have happened. If we'd have got a good draw, the Sheffield United was a great day for everybody, but actually we could have got a much better draw at home, with the teams left in it, and then it would have been a different story, So that was the target really. For me, I don't know whether Mike wants to jump in and say anything about that really.
Yeah. I think Andy and I have high standards for ourselves more than anybody. I think we're both incredibly ambitious. And I think we went into the Derby game knowing it was a bit of a freebie. But we'd seen something that we thought we could do on the day. And, we had the opportunities that came off the back of that and we took it. When Cambridge City came through, I think we knew very little. As soon as we saw they were in Tier 4, we fancied our chances. And I think that's kind of the standards we set for ourselves. We know 3 is new territory. Derby was new territory, minus maybe Wolves that we've had the joy of playing 3 times. But we haven't stepped into that domain at all. But we know 4 quite well. We've had great results against teams in the leagues above. And actually, for us and our standards, I think had we drawn, rather than the Sheffield United, had we drawn a Lincoln City or a Leafield or anybody in that ilk, we would have been the minnows would have had an upward battle, but we'd have fancied our chances, and we'd like to think we'd still be in the draw. So that's kind of the place that we're at, and it's a nice place to be and exciting. Does it mean that occasionally we'll be disappointed because we got beaten by a team in the league above? Yes, but that's the fun part, and that's the bit that drives us and onto hopefully the further echelons of the competition. And in a couple of years' time, hopefully we'll be talking about that in terms of Tier 3 rather than Tier 4, and how can we poke at the Championship. So,
sorry, John, I know you want to jump back in with the question, but just very quickly, that Sheffield game in particular, how do you approach a game like a Sheffield full time, or are they're part time? I can't remember off the top of my head, but even still, Tier 2 side. Did you say to the players or anything like that, the kind of pressure's off a little bit here, or do you just approach it like you do any other game with the same kind of mindset?
Yeah.
Is that for Mike or me? Go on, Mike.
You sure?
Yeah, go.
So we think they're professional. If definitely they're spending a lot more time on the training ground than we are. Definitely they've got access to a lot of things that all Championship clubs should have access to. I think for us, we just kind of went in with the same attitude as the Derby game, really, where, if we play well enough and if we create our chances, we'll score goals. We had an amazing chance at the start of the second half where, we ran through on goal. The Sheffield centre-back slipped and accidentally slipped into the path of the shot that was bound into the bottom corner.
Yeah, he's gone. Is he going to come back?
Leaving us in suspense.
Carry on, Andy. We'll get Mike back.
It didn't go in, I tell you. As a matter of fact, it hit her hand. It should have been a penalty. VAR and all that. Just going back to the original question overall, really. Are you back, Mike? Are you there?
Yeah, I'm back. Sorry, I don't know exactly.
Yeah, we lost you. I told him it didn't go in. Go on, carry on, Mike.
Yeah, so look, difficult. We've always tried to be difficult to play against. We've always had ideas about how we're going to score goals and how we're going to protect our goal. And actually, the goals just work really, really hard. I think, regardless of, you could set a team up in a 4-2-2-2, but if they don't have the right mentality, if they don't work hard, if they don't do things for the right reasons, then you're never going to win games. You're never going to score goals. And I think the fundamental part is they work really, really hard. They put their bodies in the way of the ball. And probably, like Andy said, the thing that we maybe didn't get right on the day was having a bit of experience and a bit of composure when we needed it at times to kind of bring us out of our half and keep the ball for a little bit longer than we needed to. But as our first foray into that level, we've now got experience, which is great, because when you go back the second time, you want to right those wrongs, and we'll do the best we can to make sure that happens.
Andy, there's a player that we look at Sheffield United. She's only young. I think she's just gone 18. We watched her at Bristol, and she scored. She scored when we went to Bristol. Lucy Watson, she got on the score sheet, I think, against Stourbridge. I think she scored the final one. I don't know if you can remember much about her at all, but it's someone that we've got our eye on as a potential youngster, English, potentially making that wanted to step up. I even think she declined some of the top teams to go to Sheffield to get regular game time as well, which is very commendable. If you can think of anything, can you remember much about her game at all, or how well she played, or how many minutes she played, or anything like that?
Did she score the first goal, Mike? Was that the first goal she scored, or the second?
I think she created the first. She played.
Scored the second.
Played left midfielder in the midfield four.
Yeah, did she score the second? She scored, didn't she?
She did score, yeah.
Yeah, she scored the second. Yeah. Just past it. Yeah, the left side bothered me all game, if I'm honest. I said to Mike, he's brought 45 minutes definitely. So, she was causing a lot of problems, and her finish was very, very tidy. A goal. So, is she 16? Is that the 16-year-old one?
No, that's Mia. Lucy's
18.
19.
Yeah, so what I can remember of her, like I say, remember the left-hand side, it was tough. Bless them, Jess and Karen down that side were absolutely battered at 90 minutes. But yeah, for me, I remember very little of individual players on that day. Obviously, the striker was exceptional. The girl up front was incredible for Sheffield. So, Mike, you might be better placed.
Yeah, no, they were very, very clever. They were just really well balanced all game. And Lucy's threat was you couldn't show the ball over to the left-hand side to try and encourage them to cross or do anything on the left foot, because Lucy has a wonderful left foot. What she did brilliantly was read the other forwards movement. She ran into the half zones and caused problems all day. I thought the timing of her movement was great. It wasn't easy to move. The pitch was difficult. Staying on the ball was difficult, but she made it look very easy, very exciting. I was speaking to Kelsey Byrne, who is one of the coach educators at the FA, who did some one-to-one work with her. I spoke to her the week afterwards, and she only had high praise for her as well. So, but
I just thought I'd mention it because we mentioned it on the show, and I didn't really know anything about it until the day we went to watch for Bristol, and Natalie did a bit of research on it. So I just thought I'd throw a name out there because she did obviously get on the score sheet on that day. And just before we move on from the FA Cup, Mike, it's really interesting that we're talking about Derby being the biggest game of that FA Cup, and I can see why, of course. But we did win after Derby as well against Cambridge, but we don't really talk about that one. Cambridge, that win against Cambridge got us further into the competition, but it was the Derby game, and I guess in a year to come, 2 years to come, 5 years to come, it is that Derby game, isn't it, that you'll remember in this fantastic FA Cup run that you've had?
Yeah, Derby, just such a high-profile team. I was actually involved in a game with them a few years ago when I was at Stoke, and they were a very good side then. The quality of some of their players, Jade Formiston was involved, as you probably would have seen in Twitter, at Coventry United for a long time. Ellie Gillett is an outstanding centre-forward who I think both players could very well be playing Championship football if they wanted to, and Sam alluded to that in other interviews that she's made as well, that actually the quality at the top end of the three is now good enough to play in two at points. So I think the nature of football being that because they're a big name club and a big side in the women's game, and they only conceded one goal in Tier 3 all season. For us, the strength for the upset was huge, and just the backing and resource at that club was phenomenal. So for us to go there and do what we did was kind of validation in us knowing that we've done the best with what we have, and the girls were producing at an incredible level. So the opportunity in the long term when the women's game grows to what we all know it will do is huge and very exciting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And Conor, obviously the FA Cup is over with now. Obviously got a lot of fond memories, but we've still got the league and the County Cup to go for. It's looking really good for Stourbridge at the moment. I appreciate that we've slipped down a little bit in the league purely just because the amount of games that we've had to postpone for either weather or playing in the cups, and I get that. I think we're 7 points behind, but 3 games in hand. So it's still in our hands in that sense. Conor, just your thoughts when you could keep on seeing week after week Stourbridge win, and not only win quite emphatically as well.
I think that's the thing, isn't it? Obviously, the one that stands out, I'm pretty sure you two will be able to speak about it because obviously you were there, was the 20-0 2 weeks ago. I think it was the same day that we played Man United. I can't remember who we'd played. I think it might have been the Villa game, actually, a couple of weeks ago, the last game of the season for us, for the women's. I remember just looking at it on my phone going, it's like 9-0 after 20 minutes or something, or whatever it was. It was something like 6 or 7-0 after 20 minutes. And I was showing the guys around, I was like, okay, this could be a heavy scoreline. It was getting higher and higher, and I was thinking, okay, this is, but it's not the only one. Like you said, when you first got into the team at the start, I remember you messaging me straight away. It was like, I've just seen them beat. Was it live at 11-1 or whatever it was a few months ago. So I think it just shows the kind of what Andy, Mike, and the girls and everyone else involved with Stourbridge are doing. That, yes, they're in tier 5, but clearly the level is there to go on to tier 4, and then obviously above, you've shown it in the FA Cup, showing it I think that's the thing, isn't it? It shows the squad depth as well. Going in the County Cup, going in the league, and in the FA Cup. That's 3 competitions there, and it's not exactly like they've had an easy run as well. So it's very commendable. Hopefully, obviously, from your guys' perspective, and obviously as fans, it continues, and end the season with a league win, and potentially, obviously, in the County Cup as well. See how far that goes. It's just looking good. So I think it's going to be interesting. Like I said, if you do obviously get promoted and into next season, testing yourself on a regular basis against like tier 4, because I said to John privately, and I've got no issues with saying it on here, that I think you'd be pretty comfortable in tier 4 as well, just watching the teams that I've seen around there. So that could be very interesting. I don't know whether, John, did you want me to go into kind of objectives and things like that? One of the questions I had was about kind of season objectives. Obviously, you guys will set your own targets. I don't know whether above you they'll set targets as well, and these kinds of things. A question I've always thought, like, because I've never been involved in kind of football management and these kind of things. Do you tell the players what the season objectives are, or do you just kind of keep it like kind of between like management? Like, I don't know whether you just like tell them what it is, like to put pressure on, or to say, this is at the start of the season, you go, right, this is the target, this is what we have to hit, or do you just say like a game by game basis?
I think we have to, Connor, at this level, because the ambition and the target set to me and Mike is that you've got to go and win the league. Because you've got to get promoted. So to get promoted, you have to win the league at this division. So target and objectives is purely promotion, regardless. Everything else is a bonus. And it's actually 4 competitions, because the league have just threw a League Cup in there as well. So we've got another cup to play for now. So the rest, the pure focus now after that FA Cup run is purely the league and promotion. But yeah, we have to. We've told the players every season, really. We did 2 seasons ago, and we do now, because the target set by the club and the ambition by the club is you have to get yourself into the National League. Will we do that next season? If we get promoted, who knows? It's a completely different outlook. You've already said, Connor, but you're looking at 2 guys, and Mike's already touched base on it. If we do get promoted, and it's a big if, because there's other teams around us who are as good, and they're good teams. If we get promoted, our ambition will be we want to go again. We want to go again, because that's where we're at, and that's where the club's ambition will be. So we'll always set that target of we want to win the league, we want to get promoted, and that'll be the conversations we'll have with players. We will always tell players we've got to be in that top 1 or 2 to go and get ourselves promoted. And when we're talking to players, and you're talking to players who you want to kind of sign in the club, you're saying, listen, the reason we want to sign you in is could be, we want you to help us win the league. So yeah, it's an objective that we share from chairman right the way at the top, vice chairman, through to the management staff, down to the players, without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah, I suppose the nice thing for me is more than Andy, I get to work on a bit more of a subjective level with the girls. So we always talk about winning the league, and that is ambition that Andy and I and everyone involved have. I think one of the other things that we work really hard on is making sure that we progress the girls along the year. So any girl that we speak to about coming to the club, we talk about their football first, and how we want to help them progress. And I know it's something that that Mark's very keen on too, is progressing players during their time. And actually, our firm belief is if we can support them as players and develop them as players, they'll benefit the team. And that's really the big part about what we do is we give the girls the best footballing experience we can. We're very honest with them whenever we can. At all times we're very honest with them. And whenever we can, we give them additional support. And the first thing Andy said to me once we finished the FC Premier game was, let's get this fitness stuff going and let's get the girls moving over Christmas, because until about 5 minutes ago, 9th of January was the D-Day for the season. And, we've got 2 big games coming up against Sutton and Lichfield, who've both beaten teams from the league above in cup competitions this year too. So they're absolutely no mugs. 5 is not an easy league anymore. And if we don't work hard and if we don't progress as a group, and if Andy and I don't continue to work to get better as well, then we don't go any further. And that's not what we worked so hard to achieve so far. So it's really exciting. But, absolutely no wins anything in December. You win a few games, but actually the business end of the season is June, potentially July for us, if we keep doing so well in these cup competitions. So, but we'll see. Very, very pleased.
Mike, you mentioned the player welfare there as well. And I think it's very easy for clubs to say that we care about players, but I think it's a credit to the structure and how sound the structure is at the club, and presumably how happy you both are in your roles that you can actually spend time thinking about the players. Because I'm sure there's some clubs out there at the same level as yourselves who are under a bit more pressure for a number of reasons, either down to poor results, lack of players, so when they get injured they're struggling, or whatever that their reason may be. It is a credit to the club that you can actually step back from the games every now and again and actually focus on the individual and not just the players, isn't it? And I think that's really commendable, isn't it? Yeah. Just touching on the County Cup as well. Obviously, we spoke a little bit about the league. Just where do you kind of see your chances there? Because for me, there's a couple of good teams, to look out for. But I think, from my point of view, any other kind of team, you should be going in there as I wouldn't say going in as favourites, but in your heart, you probably think you might not want to say it, but you probably do think that you're kind of favourites with what you're doing at the moment. And we've got that kind of swagger at Stourbridge where it's going really well for us at the moment. So why wouldn't you go in really optimistic? I mean, what are your thoughts? Obviously, both of you have you say, Andy, start off with it with that other cup that we're still in.
Well, look, I'm going to try not to get angry after the message I've just received from Mike. But if the league keep putting games further and further back, we're going to be in trouble. I might have to pull us out of the County Cup. Really frustrating news that is behind the scenes. Just seeing that. So we now the 9th game is being moved back. It just adds to us, and we've done a lot of prep for that 9th of January game against Sutton Coldfield to play that game. We've now got a free week potentially. Anyway, that gift with Jose Mourinho where it says, if I speak, I will be in trouble. I must put that on. Yes, we fancy our chances, John. I think we've got to. We're now down to the quarterfinals. We've got Solihull Sporting, who we've already beaten the FA Cup, but they'll bring a different challenge as do other teams. But then you kind of, if you get through that, and I'm not going to be disrespectful to Sporting because we'll have to make changes, especially here in the news now of, that league game being moved back towards May. We've got to start thinking about player welfare and player. So we'll have to rotate. But if we get through that game, we still fancy our chances. And me, the biggest, the draw that I want absolutely is Albion at home. I don't want Wolves. We've played Wolves several times, and as Mark's already alluded to. But for me, a nice draw against Albion at home would be great. I think you get a really big crowd down there. So, as we've said, the kind of story of the chat really is that mine and Mike's ambition is to go and win every game we can. So, if we can get to the final, it'd be absolutely great to the County Cup for sure.
Sergio, I'm not the only one that wants West Brom. The only reason I want West Brom, one of my friends that I knew from younger, Kerry Walcott, she's just gone to West Brom this season. So I'd like to get over and see that. And obviously, I'd like to tie it in with Stourbridge. So I'd like to see, I'd like to see that tie, definitely. Yeah,
definitely a big great tie that would, especially if it was at home as well.
Stuart's, you guys know Stuart, I think, from Sin 71. He's put a question on screen that I was going to talk about as well, the league structure. We spoke about it in person, and I just kind of just touch on it a little bit with how difficult. Is it difficult? I'm looking at it as it could potentially be difficult that if we do get promoted, it's a lot harder to stay in that league because obviously one team gets promoted and multiple ones are getting relegated at the moment. Mike, do you want to start us off on that one? What your thoughts are on the new promotion and relegation rule?
Yeah, so my understanding this year is obviously of all the upward movement that happened from certain clubs, there was upward movement, but there wasn't necessarily anybody that came down. Therefore, in the eyes of the competitions, whoever leads the FA competition for this, the leagues are oversized this year, and therefore more have to come down than usual. My normal understanding, I believe, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, is 1 up, 2 down from Tier 4. So 2 teams go down to separate regional leagues, and 1 team goes up into Tier 3. Hence why you have 2, and then you have 2 coming up from Tier 5. So hypothetically, 1 from our league, hopefully Stourbridge. Hypothetically, 1 from the East Mids. Currently looks like Northampton, but that could be anybody. Would go up, and 4 currently go down because those leagues are oversized. I think the really dangerous thing you could do with the way that the leagues are at the moment is think that the way that we do it right now is going to be perfect in 3 years' time. I think what we're all seeing is the women's game is growing quicker than we know. I think quicker than even I realised, when I came in a couple of years ago. So for me, my suspicion is that the current way that the leagues work right now will begin to feel even more outdated in the years to come. There is talk of a review pending the Coventry United situation, but actually I think there's a lot more teams in 5 who are ready to compete in 4. I think there are teams in 4 ready to compete in 3, and I think the larger those leagues are, the more we're able to support the girls in those leagues with the resources, which seems to be the way that clubs are going, which is great. I think that's only good for the game, and I would love to see a 16, 18 team Tier 3. I'd love to see a 16, 18 team Tier 4. Andy and I spoke about how much we'd love to play midweek fixtures. We're very fortunate to have the backing of a great club and good people where if that happened, it wouldn't be a challenge for us. So in the same way, you'd have to apply up potentially to go in from 3 to 2. Maybe there's some process from 5 to 4 where you'd have to be able to show that you were capable of playing midweek games, and therefore you could have a 16 team league. And how great would that be that actually there was more football for these girls and more support and all of those things. So I think the system suited perfectly maybe for 3 or 4 years ago. I don't necessarily think it's going to be right in 1 or 2 years' time. But there are people involved in this day to day that may know things that I don't. Just an opinion, but I would love to see it, Stu, and anybody else interested. I'd love to see more teams up in the National League where there seems to be a wealth of support, and it's exciting, and hopefully we're there next year. But I hope also in the same way that more teams like us are.
Andy, what's your thoughts on that one, mate?
Yeah, I don't think it's right, if I'm honest. I don't think they've got it right. I think Mike said there that the women's game is going quicker than what people maybe thought, and I think that's where the FA probably sit. For me, I don't get the one up situation. Win the league, you get promoted. I just that for me it sends out, and we've experienced it. Me and Mike and Stourbridge, we've experienced it for 2 years now. It just sets the wrong tone for the season, because what you do, the reason I'm frustrated about the Sutton game is because ultimately we know that that's such a massive game this season because only one team go up. Ultimately, what you do is if you allow 2 teams to go up, like other leagues, other divisions in the men's sections, it breeds a slightly different season. Me and Mike, we've been quite open about it previously, the previous seasons gone, where we were beating teams 5 or 6-0 in the division below, but we weren't stopping there. We were bringing strikers on to score more goals because we knew ultimately what could happen is that you'd go down to goal difference.
Yeah. What
kind of a league is that? We were having, this is no lie. We were having conversations with referees at half time, saying, "Ref, we've had 2 injuries in that game. You've played no minutes of injury time. We're 5-0 up. Why aren't you playing injury time?" That's what we were having conversations. I remember Mike having conversations with referees saying, you need to pay the injury time because we need that extra goal. We need that over. That's not how we want and that was kind of happening last season. Obviously, slightly different this season. But the difficulty for me is they don't set the boundaries, straight away. So again, we're saying that only one team might go up, but there are rumours and there are talk that there could be 2 teams go up from our division. We know there's 4 or 3 coming down. I just think the whole pyramid, again, needs that review. The upward movement happened, but it was upward movement because of the lack of promotion, the lack of movement for COVID, not because of the women's pyramid needing that kind of, hang on a minute, restructure. You don't necessarily get it with men's division where you've got 2 or 3 teams that could go and compete in the league above. You might get one, you know what I mean? But now you've got, in my opinion, within the women's pyramid, you've got 2 or 3 teams who could easily go up and compete. And I mean easily go up and compete, for sure in the divisions above. So I think it's not right. I don't think they've got it right yet. And I hope it changes for the benefit of not just Stourbridge and teams like Stourbridge or Sutton or Lichfield, for the whole pyramid. The other thing to touch base on, another question was based around tier 3, tier 5, but there's got to be some look at tier 7 and 8. We played the FC Premier, a couple of weeks back, as Connor's mentioned. It was 20, it was that amount because of the standard and the level at tier 8. So there needs to be some work on that as well, and some look at that, and if not, and if that's the level that we have to compete in at those divisions, don't put them in county cups where they put them against the potential of Wolves or ourselves. So I think there's still work to be done. I think for sure it's progressing. I think the upward movement was the best thing that happened at the time, but now we need to start looking again when that will happen, and if that will happen, I don't know.
Connor, I see you've unmuted yourself, and I know how passionate you are in regards to growing the women's game from the bottom up. So what's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, no, I don't really have too much to add other than just agree. And I think the one thing that I've noticed this season, like I said, as everyone knows on this channel, I only started watching it really this season, but I've been to a tier 3, tier 5, 2, and obviously I go to United women's games. So I've seen pretty much most of the tiers bar tier 4. And the one thing I've said throughout all of that is it's actually closer than people think. There's a lot of teams in tier 2, the championship, that could compete in the WSL. Then the teams that are top of the championship are no worse than Birmingham and Leicester are doing at the moment. When I've no disrespect, but when I came to Stourbridge, when everyone was saying it's tier 5, I thought if you'd said to me in the men's you're going to go watch a National League game and I'm used to watching Premier League, I'm expecting a huge drop. When I came to watch Stourbridge, it was no different to when I was watching Championship or like some tier 3 sides. So I think it is a lot closer than people think it is, and that's what you said. When it's only one going up, it's a bit unfair really, because you'll have teams stuck in almost cycles. Because you'll have a team that will go just one go. Let's say Stourbridge go up this season. You've got other teams in tier 5 that are good enough to play in 4, so they've got another year of playing teams that are not necessarily on their level. And it's not really fair on them, and it's not fair on the rest of the league. Then, because it just makes it for other teams. They're looking at the top spot, going, "Well, we know we're not going to get there because that team will go up," kind of thing. So it does need looking at. I agree with what's been said. I think the FA are maybe a little bit behind. I don't think they've expected it to grow as much as it has done in the past. Kind of. It's always been growing at a steady rate, but the last 2-3 years, it's almost, we're in this kind of, I think someone said it on Sky, in the golden age of women's football or whatever they described it as. So yeah, it needs to grow. And I think we did a show when they're talking about these 2 World Cups and these kinds of things a few months ago. They need to start looking at fixing the pyramid first, start growing it from the grassroots up, fix the pyramids, put more teams in the WSL, more teams in the Championship, 3, 4, 5, and then it'll grow like that. And it'll make the league more competitive then. Because as you said, if you're fighting for one spot and you know that only one is going up, if you're a team, let's say around 3rd and 4th, you're not going to get there, because I know you'll never go into a game thinking you're going to lose. But if you know that there's such a big quality difference over a season, that will always show. You cannot fluke your way to the top. So yeah, it's a bit unfair really, but I think it will get changed. But I just don't think they expected it to grow as fast as it has done.
But just to jump in there, Connor, just to finalise on that bit, the prime example of what we've just all discussed is the upward movement. Because before the upward movement, you'd have a team at the top, team second, you'd be beating teams 7 or 8-0, us and Kenny Minster, Wolves and Boldmere. you have a look at the leagues and the divisions now with the upward movement. Wolves are, yes, they're doing very well and they deserve to be in that league, but it's not 5 or 6-0. They're exactly where they need to be. You don't know who's going to win that league. Derby, Wolves. The division, the tier below that, which is tier 4, you don't know who's going to win that. That's an open, you're looking at the relegation battle there now, and you don't know where that's going to feature. You look at our league, you don't know who's going to win that. There's 4 teams in that race. The division below, which we've just come out of, with just that upward movement application, you've just made everything much more competitive. So if they go one more with that, review it all, you just think actually, could just make women's football much better.
Yeah, and it's really interesting when you do comparisons as well. If you look at the gap between us and Sheffield is 3 divisions. The gap between us and FC Premier is 3 divisions. And you're talking 2 very different types of games, which I think highlights the difference in levels and kind of the challenge of the day that we had with Sheffield, and therefore, like you said, Connor, almost the achievement in the result itself. But I think the thing that the men's county cups have is you have the FA, the men's county cup, you have the men's Vars, you have the men's Sunday county cup, you have the men's whatever, you have so many different competitions. Or in the women's game, you have the county cup, and that is it. And there is no Vars, there is no Sunday League county cup. You are getting teams who are incredibly ambitious, pumping in some good resources and putting in some good people. And FC Premier were a great group of girls who quite obviously turned up for each other. Their management were lovely and joked with us all day and were very complimentary. But we're turning up to football for very different reasons. And that's difficult. And like Andy says, we need to be really careful with a one-size-fits-all approach. And like we've mentioned with the growth of the women's game, it needs constant reviewing. We can't simply accept that what we have now is good enough. And you can see from big incidences that have happened within the women's game in the last couple of weeks. There's another big incident about to come out that I won't comment on before it does. But there are huge things happening in the game constantly, and it needs a very different approach. And we hope for all the good work that you guys are doing on the podcast here and people are doing up and down the country to raise awareness that the women and all the girls involved in the game will benefit. So fingers crossed for good things in the future.
Awesome. Just a couple more topics just before we shoot off. Mike, I'll stick with yourself. I want to talk about a player that was announced that we brought in a few weeks ago. I believe she was from Birmingham on a dual contract. Can you just explain a little bit to people who maybe are new to women's football a little bit about how dual contracts work and the benefits for both parties, the loan club and I guess the Stourbridge in this case, and even maybe like how you're linked to a bit of both as well?
Yeah. So obviously the women's pyramid is like we've discussed. It's tier 1, which is Super League, all the way down to 8, which is regional leagues. Outside that pyramid is you have the WSL academies, you have the women's national development leagues, and you have various other bits and bobs going on. Some teams choose to put teams into the women's pyramid. So, for example, our development team currently sits in tier 7, doing really, really well. Some teams sit within those national league development leagues. They play in WSL academy leagues. And I think one of those things those leagues do really well is they help produce players within great environments, surrounded by very, very good coaches, surrounded by very good players, and that's fantastic for them. I think the gap that we discussed with the chap I speak to at Blues and all the folks there is that they want those girls to go and get some experience of the women's game, the women's pyramid. And, actually the be all and end all for these players is to play against WSL and championship teams. And there is some really important experience to be gained by playing in your tiers of football. The great thing about what the club have done and offered Andy and I is that we have the resources and the environment to be able to invite those girls in and tell them that actually we're not just going to support them by providing those experiences, but everything they get at Birmingham, they're going to get at Stourbridge, and that we can offer a huge amount to them not only in terms of pitch time, but in terms of their development on the training pitch and exposing them to older players and exposing them to an incredibly competitive environment. I think sometimes those national development leagues can be very much oriented towards development, and I think that's really important that we have those spaces for players, and some players will absolutely thrive in those environments. But it's also really important that when they go to a first team changing room, they're ready to take a telling by their captain if they're not playing well. They're ready to get a bit of jip from the manager if they're not producing a performance. They're ready to enjoy winning games, and they understand the value and importance to a football club of winning games and being part of a club, beyond turning up for a development team. So, and I suppose it's great for all parties really, in that, that constant communication between Birmingham and us about the players that we have who've joined us allows us to kind of shape their learning both here and at Birmingham. And, the other side of the coin is for us is we get to work with and expose the Stourbridge girls to some fantastic footballers. And what's great is they don't look out of place, on both sides. Like Connor said, there isn't a gap there. There isn't a difference. The big differences are what they've been exposed to at younger ages, because that's what's happened in women's football. But for us, it's an all parties win situation, and we understand that if we didn't do things right, and if we for a second took those opportunities for granted, we might not have them again. So we work really hard to make sure that we dot the I's and cross the T's, and these girls get the best opportunities possible. And Andy's done a great job, not only accommodating them, but the development players and 18s that we have in our own club. And he was very humble about it and everything he put on Twitter, but he included a lot of development and under 18s, and that's conducive to the environment that we have. And not only did the Blues girls get that experience, but our girls got that experience of being around Andy and the older girls and that changing room too. So a really young County Cup side, a very diverse County Cup side, but the expectation and the result was there.
Mike, you just kind of led me on perfectly, because I just wanted to speak to Andy just about some of the youngsters who are coming through. We keep talking about like how many teams are in Stourbridge women's team and women's football club itself, and it's great to see them coming through. Do you just want to maybe shout out maybe how you don't need to shout out players' names if you don't want to, because I know maybe that's not always the way to go, but just like how fortunate we are, and not just by luck either. It's I know a lot of work goes behind the scenes, and I remember Mike saying the other week that you even look at how the standard of the before they even get to Stourbridge, you look at the standards that they're at already, like how to develop those. I guess what I'm trying to say is just like how fortunate we are as a club to be able to bring through top quality players.
Yeah, I think the whole setup is brilliant, and let's not forget that the reason we do this is because we're all one section. We don't just see the first team, the development team, and the under 18s as three separate teams. We're all trained together, So when Mike does the plan for the first team, he sets out the plan for the development team and the under 18s, and then he and we discuss kind of with the management team, the coaching teams within those teams. About what we want them to do, so it all filters down correctly. And to add on to that, you've then got the academy side, which is linked with Dudley College, which Mike leads on and manages on as well. So you've got an extra add-on and that's just going to grow. That's going to spiral. The work that Mike and Cal do behind the scenes with that's going to spiral to bring in more players into that under 18s, that development team. And that first team, and what we've got with the junior section, you've got an under 16s team that are going to filter into the under 18s next year. So it's just panning out. That wasn't there 2 years ago. It was kind of mismatched. We hadn't got the development team, we hadn't got an under 18s team, we hadn't got a real good junior section. That's kind of all been built up now from Callum and Mike and myself, and we've got this pathway now that just filters in. So it allows your players. We've got Kira, for example. Kira played in the County Cup game. She plays for the academy. She plays for the under 18. She plays for the devs, and she's featured in the first team now. Prime example of your pathway, and she played incredibly well. I think she scored actually. As a matter of fact, I think she might have been one of the scored. So we've got 4 or 5 other players who are pushing that boundary, and it's not just about ability. We've said this to certain players who got call-ups even in the FA Cup game. It's not just about ability. It's about actually, I'm going to join Stourbridge development team. I'm going to join Stourbridge Academy. I'm going to join the under-18s team because I want to be in the first team. If you bring that attitude, that's exactly what we want. We may not have seen that 2 years ago. We set up the development team and it's very much a social thing. It's absolutely, it's still that social bubble, but it's absolutely moved away from that now. It's moved to the point of any player that we want to come in is because they want to come in because they want to better themselves to get into the Stourbridge first team. So it's a really, really exciting and good setup, and it's only growing. And me and Mike are constantly talking about how now we progress the development team and the development of those players. We've got to give them first team opportunities, of course, but that development team will just get better and better. And we're constantly pushing Tom and Sav, the staff at the development team managers, and telling them this is what we want. We demand results from them as well, because we can't have too much of a big gap, can we, between the first team and the development. So exciting times ahead. We're just not going to hold it there. And you'll see, I can promise you'll see some of the players Kira mentioned. She'll be filtering through definitely into our development team now, and I'm sure into the first team.
Who's the manager of the? Is it the under-16s? Is it Matt?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if it's on Twitter or something, but I'm sure I've seen the name. But Mike, do you just want to touch on Matt's performance with the 16s?
Yeah, we're chuffed, and Cal's done a wonderful job with the girls section. We were already working with Matt Guys and some of the under-16s and talking about the way that they're going to come through and be involved, like Andy said, and like he wants in the college and the under-18s and the setup. And those are very ambitious girls from very ambitious families who are very driven to come through and do very well. And we're seeing that attitude through the whole club. John, I've seen your comments on Twitter about the results from the girls section, and there is a balance between development and results, and have the girls having a grassroots experience. But at the same point, the girls and those parents, they want to be at Stourbridge because of the ambition at the top end of the club, which is exciting, I think, for girls football too. How wonderful is it to see grassroots teams going out and being competitive and seeing an ambition in their, not only in their football in the long term, but in their education, because certainly in girls football, education is tied strongly with their sports, with their sports choices, with their social circles, with their social choices outside of sport as well. So got a great group coming through, great groups coming through in the long term too. Got 2 under 14 teams who are doing phenomenally well in the area too. So we're really pleased with everything, and I'm excited to work with Matt and all the girls next season too.
Awesome. We haven't got to end the show there, but just before Andy is back, can I just a final word from yourself before we go?
I don't really have anything else to add other than, obviously, I'm glad that I don't know about you, John, but I'll definitely be back. I think it's the 16th of Jan, whichever game that is. I'm pretty sure it's a cup game because it was
a Sporting game. Yeah, it's Solihull Sporting in the quarterfinals of the County Cup.
Yeah, so there'll be a few of us back for that one, which would be good. It'd be good to see the team again, because like I said, that's the one thing I hope that does. It will happen eventually, but obviously at the moment every tier play on Sunday at 2:00. Most of them, it's only really the top ends like United, Arsenal, Chelsea that get different kickoff times, and even then we're not going to make it back for 2:00. So hopefully that does start to change a little bit, so we can get to some more games. But yeah, I think everything's already been discussed. The cup run was unbelievable, even though it was unfortunate. Obviously, we couldn't be there along with it as well. But just keeping an eye on social media, I think, was brilliant, and seeing all of the kind of reactions to that as well. And obviously, still in 3 competitions, the league and the 2 cups, it's on. The treble's on.
Steady on. I
just want to give a bit of a shout out to Stourbridge's social media as well, because it's absolutely fantastic. And I know it's ongoing, it's constant. Not just the type of not just the amount of content, but the type of content as well. It's a good balance between educating the fans, but also seeing some of the players have fun as well. And I think it's, you know, I do send messages to the account, and I know who it is. I met him in person, but I just want to give him a bit of a shout out as well, because Stourbridge are ahead in so many different ways, you know, on the pitch and off the pitch. So I just want to give the socials a big shout out.
He kind of deserves that, Jonathan, because he's in our groups. He does a lot. The girls love him. He does a lot behind the scenes. Richard Clark, he's amazing, he's good for the game as well. He's good. He talks the game up very well and loves the women's sport, and so he absolutely deserves that shout out, because it's always those. Me and Mike get a lot of the plaudits, but we don't get what we get without that marketing and that push behind the scenes with people like Rich Clark and Mark Weir, who do behind the scenes. It's incredible. So definitely.
Guys, thank you for coming on. We could have gone into every topic for another hour at a time, but we've kind of gone over a few things. I really hope that you come back again, like March, April, May time, and I know we've got a few things lined up over the summer as well, potentially. And it's really something that me, Conor, and Orphan United WFC want to do. We do really want to raise awareness for our local teams as well. And I know Matt and Nat and Benny up north speak to FC United quite a lot, and they went to their Christmas party with Tom Fitton on Monday, and that was a few stories there, and it's great to see. And I think let's grow the game together, and that's what we're doing. So thank you, Andy and Mike, for coming on. Really appreciate it. Conor,
thank you both.
No problem.
Cheers, guys.
I'll catch you again soon. And have a great New Year, everybody.
Come on, United.
Absolutely.